Hello, this video is to show you how to do a data mart. And as we talked about, there's many ways to do data marts. We're going to do a view-based data mart. For the project, we're going to do a view-based data mart. For this assignment, we're going to do a view-based data mart. It's going to create one table that doesn't really exist. It's a view, so it creates when you instantiate it. But it's just a piece of SQL fiction that doesn't exist until you call it. And then it will temporarily exist, and once you close the view, that data won't be held anywhere. It's nice because it's always live. When you run it, it's querying live data, so it's a live view. Sometimes with data marts, you can have like nightly updates with an ETL process that can come out of date. So that's kind of something you need to think about, whether you want to have a table-based data mart or a view-based data mart. Well, for this, we're going to create a view-based data mart. And that doesn't mean that's the way you're going to create every data mart. A lot of times you'll create table-based ones that you do an ETL process nightly or hourly, but this is what we're going to do for this class, a view-based data mart. It's a single view, and it's like a table. It doesn't exist until it's run. It's up to date, and this is just one way to do it. So I'm going to first show you what we want to do here. We don't want to show all of these columns. Let me, you can kind of see what we're going to be doing, but we want to do this, but we don't want all these columns. We don't necessarily need the arrival date, year, month. The week number we don't need, but the day of month, these we can concatenate into one column and then get rid of, go from 4 columns to 1. That's a little bit of a cleaner data mart. We want our data mart to make things, data mart should make things easier for us to look at and interpret. So we don't need all these columns. Let's collapse these 4 into 1. I'll show you how I did that. And then some of these columns, like is repeated guest, turns out that one's not really populated, so we don't need to bring that over. That's going to confuse things for us. And then, so dead tables we want to get rid of. And also, it doesn't really make sense. The whole purpose of a data mart is to make things easier for us. So instead of bringing Neil 1, 2, or 3 over, we want to do a join and actually bring over a descriptive interpretation of what the meal is. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Getting rid of columns and making the columns that we do have useful just by glancing at it. Something that you can export to Excel and do immediate treatment to without having to do VLOOKUPs or anything. So how do you do that? Well, if we want to get rid of columns, we don't want to select all, but we also don't want to type in customer is canceled. We don't want to do that, right? So a shortcut to get around that is you go to this, you go to whatever column you want to pull from, and you do table inspector. Now this is going to be different through different DBMSs. This is how to do it in MySQL if you're using Microsoft SSMS or whatever other DBMS you're using. It's going to be slightly different, but you should be able to do a feature like this. So go to columns, and then you can select them all, right click, copy to clipboard, and you'll copy the select column statement. So you've got that copied. We're going to create a new SQL tab, and we're just going to paste that select statement. Now, what do you notice? It's super long, really not easy to read. And we're going to be doing some treatments to this data. So I'm going to enter for a new line, and I'm going to tab over so everything's lined up. And I'm just going to line all this up. This is easier to read. If you're doing this for work or for something that's going to be used like a data mart, you do want to have it formatted in a way that makes sense or looks nice. So this is a very good way to do that. Alright, so we'll get everything, we'll get our select statement, because that's kind of the cornerstone to this view. Cool, okay, cool. Alright, good. Alright, now the select and the from, those are tabbed over, so it kind of visual cue when you're looking at the code of when the select statement ends. Let's run it and see what it looks like. Okay, cool. All right, so now we will be joining. So we want to define the table name. So here we are selecting from hotel booking. So that's our table name, right? So we don't need to define it if we're just selecting stuff from a single table. But when we're messing with joins, you want to be very careful to define what table you're pulling something from. So we want to do hotel booking dot customer. Hotel booking dot is canceled. So I'm going to do that here because we want to define specifically what table we are pulling from. If you don't do that, it's going and you're joining with a table that has the same column header, it's going to be an ambiguous header situation, and it's not going to know what to do. So you need to be very clear with what table you're pulling from. So let's do that. All right, let's do that. It runs the same data. Again, if you're selecting from one table, you don't need to do that. But because we know that we're going to be doing a join to get this meal fixed, to actually show the type of meal that it is in a descriptive manner, then we need to join from a different table. So that necessitates us defining what table it's coming from. Now, before I do that, we want to get rid of some columns, and we're free to do that. So we need to get rid of the week number. We don't really care about what week of the year it is. But we can turn the year, the month, and the day of the month into a date. And this is when they actually arrive. We have booking date, when the reservation is for, and then we can see when they actually arrive. So let's do a treatment to this and concatenate it. All right, so I've run that treatment. I've concatenated it, and you can see I've concatenating is just mushing things together. That's a technical term, mushing it, and you put a dash to separate it so it is in a date format, whatever format you want it to be in. And then I name the column. This is how it's going to appear down here. So let me run this and show you the difference that it makes. All right, so arrival date, instead of having 4 columns, you have 1. That clears things out for you. And arrival date is what you've named it, so that is cool. If you don't do it, it gives you kind of an ugly name. See, it gives you the actual code that you used to do it. So let's actually name it arrival date. And you can apply that treatment to multiple columns. But now, we don't want meal to show up, right? We want the meal abbreviation to show up. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a left join, and we're going to join from the canteen contract table, and we're going to do it on hotel booking dot meal equals canteen contract dot, and it's actually in the canteen contract table, it's actually called meal as well. That's a lot of times that's not going to be the case. In this instance, it is actually called meal. You want to join 1 and 1, or the number and the number. So we're going to do that join, and we're going to run this, and nothing's going to change in the data set here, but we're just going to make sure it ran. Okay. So now to get the actual, here it's still showing the number. To get it to show the actual meal name, you'll want to figure out what that header is called. It's called a brev. So we're going to do a little trick here, and it's pretty simple. Instead of doing hotel booking dot meal, we're going to do canteen contract, and we're not going to do dot meal. We're going to do a brev, and we're going to call this Well, let's do this, and then I'll show you how to rename it. There we go, basic breakfast. Now in our data mart, the data mart is all about making things easier for us to read and to understand. So we don't want to leave it as called a brev. We want to call it as meal. I cannot type meal name. Let's run this, see what it looks like. Bingo bango, we're on our way. Meal name. Now I'm not going to go through how to do it for all of these they're the fields that you were asked in your assignment about. You'll find those and you'll bring those into this this view. Now, like what I just said, we want to make it a view. Okay, so you don't want to have this code copied somewhere that you just copy and paste it and run it. You want to have it kind of saved in your database, right? So what you can do, what we're going to do is create a view. Now here you can see there's tables, views, stored procedures, and functions. We're going to create a view for this. And so I have code to do it already, and it's just create view. And it's a select statement. So we're gonna take this code and we're gonna bring this over to this SQL that I'm working. Here it is. Okay. All right. So I'm just gonna paste it above, and we're gonna create view, and we're gonna call it. I'm gonna call it datamart because that's what it is. That's a descriptive name for your project. You could call it marketing datamart, whatever you think is an appropriate name for it. I'm calling this datamart, and you're creating it as select, and you can just delete the select statement, and it's gonna run it based on the select statement that you've built. And let's run this and see what happens. Okay, it ran, and you don't see the view here. It's not appearing yet. We need to hit refresh. And it's fetching, and there it is. And if you want to see the answer to this, is right-click, select rows, and there it is. It's doing the transformation. You have a view that is acting as a data mart, and it is combining from, well, this one is just 2 tables, but really yours will be more than 2 tables. It's going to be multiple tables that it's merging into one, and after it's done, you're going to have things that are treated and that make sense and that you can easily view it. And people from other departments can ignore your data mart. It doesn't matter to them, but you have this nice little saved thing that is giving you easily interpretable information. And then if you need to copy this to Power BI, ideally you would have it connected to this view, but we can't do that because of the technical issues that we've run into. So you could copy this, export it all, here, export, and export it to a CSV, and you've got a flat file created from your data mart.